Okay, so this is the recording for November 7th. I won't be able to attend in person, so I'm going to record it ahead of time. So the very first thing I did, a lot of people asked, there's too many things in my database. The list is too long, blah, 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 blah. Homework 4, project, whatever you want to do. I think I'm using an old version of, I sure am. I'm using an old version of the homework. So let's fix this really quickly. You have the connection code. Um, and so what I did was just walk you through it. All I did was grab the populate and setup page for my thing, and that is it. Because I'm going to repopulate with 10 students, so that way we can look at things a little bit more clearly. So yay! I was wondering why it was already imported, but it wasn't there because there is no Derby database. Dink, dink, dink. So we're setting up the database. I'm just going to wipe it out, drop it, and create it. Then we'll populate it. This version of populate that I have, obviously, I'll make sure this is available in this week. But all it does is it does the fixed populate while count is greater than 0. It keeps going and it tries to, populate the database until we have at least 10 users. Where is the output? Way too many things open. There we go. So it inserted 4 things. Yay. And that's all I did. I have no qualms about it. Creating fewer or more for your purposes of testing and so forth, it really doesn't matter. It really, really doesn't matter. You'll notice that the homework, not the homework, but the work that I submitted to you does not have the node modules folder in it. To fix that, you just type npm install in the folder, and it'll automatically create everything you need to have to run it. No matter what it needs, it'll automatically run it. So that is what we do there. So let's just remind ourselves where we are. So I'm just going to go ahead and ng-serve, and we'll talk a little bit about where we are. We actually should have the student lit. Oh, I see. I used equals instead of -0, so it was trying to figure out which project to open. Unfortunately, yay. If you don't do anything and you just type ng serve, it automatically assumes the folder you're in. We don't care about that, but that's what that is. I don't have my glasses on, if you might haven't guessed. So that's kind of part of what's going on. But anyway, also let me make sure I'm using the right microphone. Yeah, right microphone. So we get the good microphone. So we're running it, and we've got localhost up. Doesn't have a list of students because this is not actually running. Go ahead and run it. Every day, every time we go to start class, we're going to kind of have this kind of feel. I forgot that I had to have this running. I usually do have this running. I just did not because I wanted to wipe it out and so forth. Yay. So as soon as it's loaded, we can refresh the page and we should get a list of students. These students are actual students. This wasn't just me playing around. A couple things we're going to do. I'm going to remove the if statement. I put it there just so we can play with it. We're going to add 2 more components today. We're going to have an add student component and we're going to have a detail student component or student detail component where we look at all the elements of the student. And then we're going to do a couple of things with pipes today as well. But first things first, I'm going to go through the student list component, HTML. I'm sorry, it's everything is very large. And I'm going to remove the if statement. I'm not going to completely remove it. What I'm actually going to do is just get rid of that, put that back the way it was, and then I'm going to comment out the things that I want. So I'm leaving it. We are going to come back and play with this later, but right now I just wanted to kind of clean it up a little bit. We'll talk about pipes in a few minutes as well. It's a formatting tool, but let's go ahead and generate those components that we're going to do today. So ng generate component, and I can write ngc. We're going to go with add student. When we generate a component, it creates the template, the HTML part, and it creates the TS, which is the component part. It creates a CSS file. If we wanted to have specific for that component, but it also updates module.ts to include that as well. I'm also going to add one other one. We're going to do that right now, and I'm going to call it detail student. Or no, sorry, student detail. Okay. I actually have this way the hell out of order. I apologize. So what I'm planning to do is not the head student first. I'm going to go ahead and do the detail student, and we'll come back. But the most important thing we're going to actually play with are the routing. Be the first thing we screw with today. We talked a little bit about it, but now we're going to go into a little depth here. So now we have a student detail add student. Right. All right. Brain fart. Here we go. So we have routes, you have student list, and empty path. What we want to do is go to add student. So how do we want to do that? Well, we want to go to student list, or we want to go to add student, and it automatically takes us there. So what we're going to do is add a path here, just like this one. Excuse me, just like this one. Or add student, right? And we got to import the not helping me out, are you? Okay, fine. You don't want to be that way? Easy enough to just grab it like this, right? There's no what's called there, right? And then you type from, put the thing, go dot, and then add student slash come on, why is it not helping me out here? Add student dot component. Boom. Now you have the import. Now you can use it at will. It's a component, so you just change that component to this component. Oops, excuse me, I did it backwards. This component. Yay. So add student and student list. Yay. All right, so let's play a little bit with routing. Now, once I save it, it's automatically going to do its thing. But we're going to do detail student first, I promise, but we're going to go play with routing a little bit. So now we have the routing. And so let's go to add student. Right? And it says, can't be reached. Localhost refused to connect. Wait. Ha. It did refuse to connect because it wasn't served. I thought it was running. It is not running. So that is a problem. So let's go run it again. Virtually everything we can do, we'll be doing while it's running. We'll be making these changes as it's running. That won't be that big a deal unless we screw something up. But anyway, compiled successfully. Maybe student app. And then I'm going to go add student. And then we get the add student page, right? Not very exciting. What about if I misspell it? By default, it doesn't know what to do. It's going to go to dot dot. What is a little weird is, and I don't like this, is you might have noticed it still says student add. Like if I say students is dumb, right, as an example, it still shows students is dumb, right? It's redirecting obviously to the student list, but it still says that. I don't want it to say that. How can I get that to stop happening? Well, instead of doing a component like this, we can do a redirect. So I'm just going to redirect to student list instead of going to a component. Much better plan. And you'll see why, right? You want to make sure it's still running after your change, and then refresh the page. And now I say, I love you, Lucy. Lucy, right? I love Lucy, right? And now it redirects, and so you have the redirect that looks right. This is just a stylistic choice to do this, but it makes so much sense. Just please do it for me, right? It's so much better. It's so much better. And so that's what we were talking about. So if it matches the student, it matches student list, great. One thing we want to make sure of is that it matches the first path as we go along. So if I have this up here as the second thing, it'll only ever go to student list. It won't see add list or it won't see add student or anything else. So they are in order. So make sure that you're putting them in order. Also, if you need one like add student something, you need to make sure that the add student something is going to be in front of the add student, because the add student will match and then you're done. So make sure that you're putting them in the proper order. So it's very important to do. Routes you should be going from the most specific to the least specific. Order does matter. And we can actually nest routes. We don't care about that here. But now that we have an add student page, I just want to show you how to create a link to do it. Okay. We're going to go to the student list component, HTML. And just at the bottom of the page, I'm going to put a P break. And then I'm going to go A or F, right? Nope. Class is main. I think I have not yet copied in the CSS, but I plan to do so. So I'm going to type router link, and I'm going to specify the name of the link that I wish to have. So I'm going to go add student. Okay. Doesn't seem like much, right? I just said router link is add student. This is actually going to match up to the routing module. It's going to go to the right. It's going to go to this route and look for a match. So it should match add student. Let's see. Here's my link. Click on it. Hey, add student. Works pretty well, right? Yay. It's pretty simple, but it's necessary, right? So pretty easy to add a router link. And router links are good because instead of having to do something like this, which can get ugly pretty quickly, by the way. I'm trying to find the student list here. So this can get pretty ugly pretty quickly. If we do something like a ref equals slash add student, it works, but it requires it to do the routing. So it takes a little bit longer, I think, is why we don't do it. See, the add student and the add student links are the same. They are, and it does in fact work. You could do this just as well. You're going to want to do the router link when you want to do like send parameters and stuff like that. So rather than this, but it really doesn't matter. You could do it either way. I tend to use the router link when I know it's a Angular link that I want to follow. as opposed to doing an external link like off the website. But it really doesn't matter to me how you do it. All right, boom. So now what? Well, we have detail. Let me talk about what the student detail is before we do it. And there is one other thing I want to do. Yes, it may not be obvious yet, but I want you to look at student app up here. You see this? This is the title of the web page, right? Go to add student, it still says student app, right? And it'll always say that because it's actually the title of the web page, right? So I can't believe I'm going to do this first, but let's go ahead and do it. So inside the student component, I'm going to add a import. And I'm going to import the title. Automatically does it, right? Okay, great. Inside the constructor, I'm going to go private title service title. Did I do that backwards? No. I just used little upper lowercase, right? Okay, great. Inside the init, I'm just going to simply go this dot title service dot set title to whatever I want the title to be. And by simply doing this and doing nothing else, literally nothing else, right? When I go to add student, right? Oops, did I put that in the wrong place? Oh, I think I put it in the wrong place. Student list component. Yeah, I did. It's not in the right. I put it in the add student component. Burp. Oh well. I'll do it there too. Just give me a second. First of all, copy that. Let's go to student list component and constructor. We want to put a comma and then we put that there. Add import helps us add the import, which is great. And then I'm going to come back with the title service. This is a problem I initially encountered, and I was really annoyed at why it wouldn't work or why I couldn't change it. It like really annoyed me that this was we'll say all students, right? Why this was happening, right? It was like, this is weird, right? So all students, and then I'm going to click on add student. It still says list of students. Did I not change it? I thought I did. Oh yeah, but I didn't save it, which is pretty important. Yes. And so now it says add student. All students, add students. So you can change the title service to make those changes. It's pretty simple to do, but it is kind of annoying that you actually have to do it. All right, so let's talk about student detail. Student detail we're actually going to modify, but our endpoint that we're interested in for student detail is actually pretty simple. I'm going to talk about it first. We're going to select a student by ID, right? That's it. We're just going to select a student by ID. Not that drastic or groundbreaking, but that's what we're going to do. Instead of saying student works, we're going to say SID. And then we're going to put SID. Okay. If it's running, you're going to get lots of failures because we didn't know what the hell that is, right? So inside this, we're going to need to get the SID. So one easy way to do that real quick and make it not fail as often is just do number and just set it to 0, right? You can do that. I didn't do that earlier, but you can certainly do that. And then, oops, I didn't save it. So as soon as I save it, it should compile, right? We didn't get to detail student yet because we're about to do the route, but this will allow that part to work at least. So if you ever need to initialize something, you can always, a number, string, something, you just always put an equal sign afterwards. Most of the time we don't do it, but I'm doing it now because I wanted to compile while I'm working on the route. That way, if something's wrong with the route, then I can know what's wrong with the route. So now we're going to have we have a add student, and now we're going to have a URL. So how do we do this? Actually pretty simple. We're going to add a parameter to this, and I'm going to go /SID. And I'm looking at that, and it says component, student detail component. So student detail component, right? And when I do that, it automatically ports. But there you go. So you remember how we're going to use a parameter? What we're going to actually do is the SID is going to come in as a parameter. So when a user selects something like this, a path that looks like student, right? If this SID is going to be passed to the component, and we're going to be able to grab that and go get the actual student. But that's what this parameter is doing. That's what this colon is saying. It's saying, hey, this next thing is a parameter. It's going to be an SID. So we need to grab it. And then obviously send it to student detail component. Nothing too drastic, but okay. Now, and we're still not done yet. We go to student list, go to our HTML page, and you see where the student ID is. What we're going to do now, I'm going to get rid of that, and then we're going to create, I copied it, as you can see, a link. One way to do this is to go router link equals big student / student ID. And then, of course, I want it to show the SID as the link, right? So that should go in here. And still compiles. We didn't save it, but it still compiles. You should be checking this pretty frequently. Yay, now we have links. Don't do anything, but hey, you want to look at the URL, and you want to make sure your URL is right before you do anything else. Another thing we can do with the router link, I didn't do it this way because I just used the link actually. This is actually cheating. This is the same as using href. You can actually do something that looks like this. I'm going to actually comment that out and do that. Right? You can do something that looks like this. So you're going to send an array, and the array is going to be the student. Oops. Sorry, it's /student. I apologize. And the other thing in the array is the student ID. Because you're inside the router link, you're actually inside the code element, so this should work. Right? And then, of course, you're no longer inside the code element because you're not in a router link. And this just makes it easier if you want to send something that's an object or something else. I'm going to change this to href, and I'm going to comment it out. Put that there, and then I'm going to comment that sucker out. Come on, Ruth. Shouldn't be that hard. All right. And then we'll close TD. Bink, bink, bink. Ta-da. Now we have a link. Now I'm going to go back to it, and I screwed something up. Yeah, I screwed it up. Let's see. Student ID. Shouldn't show that, but it's showing something it shouldn't show. First of all, that shouldn't be there. That would, of course, cause that problem. Okay, so now it's not working. It should be working. Equals. I see what's wrong. That's missing. No, sorry, this shouldn't be there at all. Boom. Route and then the parameter. Still, it's not happy. What did I mistype it or something? I think I'm mistyping it. All right, hold on. Ah, didn't require me to do that before. Was fine because it was just a what you call it. But for this, it's got to do some compiling thing, and there you go. Right? Boom. So if you have to pass an object or something like that to another component, it's much easier to use this version of router link. And the other router link should have been like that as well. I just didn't type it. But you can do this and it works the same as that. It essentially just translates it, but it's more useful if you have to actually pass like a student or something else to a full what's called. You should never do that though. If you can't type it in an ahref like this, it's probably more complicated than it should be. Okay, so now let's go look at student ID. So now we go into, let me close all these guys. Okay, we close add student. We're going to open student detail. We're going to change this. All right, so now we're going to actually go do something, right? Right, we're giving you an SID. At a minimum, I need to get the SID from the other Angular route, right? I mean, that's pretty basic. I need to go get the Angular from the Angular route. But in order to do that, we need some extra components. And so we're going to need to import them. Hopefully these do on their own. Of course, it's not. And it's Angular router. And we actually have to import a couple things from Angular router. So we actually going to just do a comma. We're going to say activated route. And then we need a param map. Okay. So where's the information going to come from? A parameter map from the URL. But in order to get the URL, I have to have an activated route. That's not something I can avoid. Okay. We need the router, but we don't know why we need the router just yet. Because I'm going to do something later with it. But you'll see what I'm going to do in a minute. So now we need the router. We need the activated route. So private routes is what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for an activated route. Can't spell worth the darn today. And that's all I need to do there. Now on ng and net, I need to actually go get it. Right? How do we do that? Is dot route param map. Stupid subscribe, but we have to do it. And I want to grab the params array. And I can barely see this. I want this dot SID, which is this SID up here, to equal params dot get SID. Okay, where does this name comes from? If you go look in the routing module, all right, I'm sorry, I can't. There you go. If you look at the routing module, that's the name that's you're pulling. So if you have more than one parameter, it would come from there. We don't generally do that, so it's not usually a big deal. But that is, oh yeah. So this is actually a string. So we're going to change this to a string. That's fine. Doesn't take any actual work to do that. Okay. And it says not assignable, it's a string because it's null. Oh. All right. This is another, what you call it, isn't it? It is. It is another config issue. So let's just go quickly fix it. I hate my life. Yeah, I could always have done that. Use exclamation part. Let's see. All right, stop. Yep, there you go. We're gonna deal with errors in a bit, but right now we should be here. We're gonna play around with it as well, just so we have some idea of what's gonna happen when we do this. This is called a non-null assertion. So this is asserting that this is not going to be null. It can totally be null, and we'll have to deal with it if it's null. But right now, we're happy, right? Because this is happy. All right, let's go back to our students. And I'm going to click on that. And now I have 48,926. I have a number. 95,683 should be 95,683. And it fully works. Let's screw around and say you suck. Because it comes from the URL, it's perfectly happy getting something that's not a number. Absolutely perfectly happy getting something that's garbage, right? Totally happy. You should actually check to see if it's a number, by the way, but it's totally happy getting garbage. What happens if you don't send it anything? What? This is why it works. Because if you don't send it anything, right, you're not routing here, right? If you're about student slash something goes here. Student slash nothing is this path because it can't figure out, it doesn't really match any of the paths. And so if you don't have one, you really can't be null, which is kind of cool. But you could still get garbage and get things that aren't numbers. So what are things that we can do to make sure we can do that? We're going to be talking about that for a minute or two. But first, I want to note a couple things. First of all, there's no reason why it can't be a string here. We're going to actually call a server, and we're going to actually attach that to a string, that string to a ID to actually go and get the actual student. So there's no reason why this can't be a string. However, I am going to later on fix it so that it is in fact not a string, but I'm not going to do that now, obviously. Okay. All right. So let's actually go start doing the things we need to do to make this actually work. All right. So we're going to go to student service, and we already have a student service. So we're going to go ahead and put a new endpoint here. Get student, right? And it's going to take an SID that is a string, right? Perfectly acceptable. It's a string. Returns this student's URL plus SID. Oops, sorry. Right? I don't think that's going to work, right? I think we might need a slash on the end of it. I'm almost certain, right? Let's try it out. Before we do anything, let's just try it out, okay? But I'm pretty sure we're going to have to change that. It is okay and not the end of the world if we have to change it. So now let's go back to our, and of course we can keep checking it. Go back to our student detail. We have an SID. So now what we need to do is we need to change this from the SID to a student equals new student. Now, why did I do the new student? Because until this method actually runs in the init, what will actually happen is things will show up. accidentally or sometimes quickly in between. And so it's not ideal to not have some initialization code on this object. So that's why I almost always set the initialization there as well. Now we want to go ahead and go add the private title service, so we can have the title service. Oops. No. Yes, that was right. And that is of the type title. And then, oops, that is not a, should not be a comma. Semicolon should be a comma. We'll line these suckers up. And then the last one will be a private student service. Student service. Okay. Now, we have to import both of these, right? Title's already there because what you call it, student service is not. Click on it, it says add import, and we have a student service. Yay! All right. So now, boom, where we have the params, right here. We're going to say this student service dot get student SID, right? And it should be this SID, by the way. Oh no, I set it to be this. I said var SID, which is the temporary variable. And so we just do SID here. Sorry. If you need a temporary variable. Okay. Then we don't want just anything. We want to subscribe to that data. And this dot student equals data. And my man, that is how we get the student. We have a lot of things we have to work on. This is not done by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, we have a lot more to do here. We have to deal with errors for the first time. So we're going to deal with those. I'm going to stop recording in a few minutes just so that I can what's called. I just want to make sure we test this briefly. Right, so the SID no longer shows up because we changed it. We're going to go ahead and go very, very quickly. You go H1 student, and I'm going to give their SID. Sorry. I'm going to go student SID. And then I'm going to go table. I think I did border equals 1. And then I'm going to go TR, and I'm going to go TD, and I'm going to go SID. And I'm going to just put a bunch of these, right? I'm just going to copy this, right? Like I'm not student major, student, the GPA. Name, major, GPA, name, major, GPA. And really there's nothing special to this. I tried to match, I think I tried to match the other one. I'm compiling it successfully, and I'm going to go ahead and check. Oops, did something wrong. Yeah. There we go. Nope, I want the 2 TDs. Then I want close a TR, open a TR. And I'm going to put these every couple of things. And that is fine. That gets us to the rest. student SID, student name, student GPA, and voila, I'm doing something obviously a little wrong. Let's go see what I'm doing wrong. I'm liking something I'm doing. Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter. Student list, student major, GPA. Okay, so let's see what's going on when I do this. It's actually good that this happened. Not a good time. I don't think I actually put the course data on there that I should have. Cross origin, it's there. It's saying a course origin failure. Access to request has been blocked. That URL does not work. You can see student slash, there's no slash, which is the problem. So we're going to go back in here and go to the student detail component. The service. I'm going to find the service, and I'm just going to put a think, wait for it to compile, go back. And as you can see now, it's working. It's just using the wrong URL. I'm going to stop recording and come back, and then we'll go ahead and do more complex things. We'll also talk about some things we might want to do as well. Thank you, guys. Watch out for the next recording.